Hello, everybody, and welcome on to Fiore Calls Game. I am your host, Andrew Fiore, with you here Wednesday, 1 o'clock live at the 321 studios. My co-host, Brandon the Con Man Con, will be joining us momentarily, and we will also have a very special guest today, John Rooke, a Rhode Island Radio Hall of Famer. And we see Brandon is in here. Got the Con Man live. How's it going, Con?
What's going on, buddy? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What's today? Wednesday?
Yep.
Typical Wednesday afternoon. We're doing good.
Another big guest with us today. I don't know if you did any research on him, but he's the voice of the Providence Friars. He was the voice of Gillette Stadium, had a Patriots talk show, writes for the Providence Journal, runs the Dean School of Broadcasting. It's absurd, the list of stuff this guy has done, and John Rooke will be joining us right after his class, which ends at about 1:05, he told me, so we're excited to hear from him.
Yeah, looking forward to it. A guy that's, like the kids are saying these days, been around the block one too many times. I'm looking forward to it. I'm most looking forward to hearing that voice of his, being the PA voice for the Pats. Ooh, baby.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at Gillette and seeing Tom Brady throw touchdowns, this is the voice you hear. So he picked the right time to work for them. And speaking of NFL, we have our NFL preview show on Friday. That's going to be a blast. We're going to have the ball knower David Okula and I believe Kyle. We're going to have some fun, make some picks. I haven't given any thought to my picks yet. I don't know about you.
No, I mean it's still so early, and you can't really judge based on preseason either. I'll have to cook a little bit. So I got what, 2 more days to come up with some predictions, because I'm gonna have to stand firm on them. So I'm gonna have to get back to you on those. But up here for the Pats, and I'm not biased in saying that.
Yeah, I tend to do picks in the moment. This year, I think I'm gonna do a little bit of research, but we're both in the same fantasy league as well. You lucked out with Jamar Chase. How are you feeling about your team?
Overall, I'm feeling fine, but our league is weird where we're doing 2 QBs starting and also having a backup. So my QBs are extremely weak compared to everyone else, because I did not pick, with the strategy going in, oh, this is a 2 QB league, I should probably get some QBs. But wide receivers are good, running backs are good. It's just I am very worried about my quarterback play. Otherwise, yeah. And like everyone says, first pick, hella overrated, unless Chase absolutely balls out this year, which he's probably going to. But I don't know. What's your team looking like? What pick did you have?
I had 3, and I grabbed Bijan.
Gotcha.
Which I would have preferred Saquon, to be honest, but you can't go wrong with Bijan.
Did somebody take Saquon ahead of you?
Yeah, I forget who was 2 in our league. But they took Saquon. So, I mean, Bijan's, the number 1 rated running back in the draft class. You can't go wrong with him whatsoever, but
no.
I don't know. I feel lukewarm about my team, even though I'm rated with the ESPN. You know how they do the power rankings. I'm apparently number 1 in our league, but I don't feel that way.
I'm fact checking that.
You're number 4.
Yeah. So as long as I'm not, projected to be really good and then end the season really bad, then I'm fine. Yeah, the rankings are weird because, I mean, I have a league with Yahoo Fantasy as well, and the way that they rank, like preseason ranks and draft ranks, it's kind of based on like backups. Like, do you have a good backup QB? Do you have a backup tight end? Like, that's basically what the whole grade is for Yahoo Fantasy. I don't know if ESPN Fantasy is like a similar way. I don't know how they grade it, because, like, honestly, other than my QBs, I just looked at my team again. Again, I'm in 3 leagues, so I forget who I have where, but I just looked again for the first time in a couple days, and not like my running backs, wide receiver room is actually kind of crazy. So fourth sounds about right, honestly, compared to everybody else's roster.
Yeah, I need better wide receivers. I have JSN. He's solid, but as
I
a
mean, he's going to be wide receiver one.
yeah, no, that's I don't see. I don't feel great about receivers without great quarterbacks, and Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers scares me. And he's coming into it
which is
as well.
yeah,
It's just, but my
it's
hands.
definitely part of the reason that I avoided taking Garrett Wilson this year because he's an absolute stud, probably obviously top 10, maybe top 5 wide receivers ones in the whole league. But just his quarterback situation with Fields scares me because Wilson has been more known for, in my mind, like a streaky down the field 10 plus yard guy. And Justin Fields is a very much, as we've seen, throws less than 10, sometimes 5 yard passes. And I just don't know, unless they play Garrett Wilson in the slot a lot this year, I don't know how that's going to turn out fantasy wise. I think Garrett Wilson will catch a lot of touchdowns once, if the Jets get a good red zone offense going, or, he could be that, first and goal, second and goal guy that they throw to basically every single time. But it's just, I do not trust that quarterback enough. But point is, I know I'm just rambling here, but the quarterback play is extremely important for fantasy too.
Yeah, and I feel good about my quarterback room. I obviously am our commissioner, so I knew about those rules heading in. I have Burrow and Purdy. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, Purdy as a number 2 is pretty good. I'm trying to pull up my. It's been a minute since I looked at the team. Yeah, so
Gotta
I
get
have
him set. Opening game tomorrow night.
yeah. My lineups are in as Terry McLaurin, which that was a gamble at the time. Marvin Harrison, Ashton Genty, Bijan, JSN, Brock Bowers, Xavier Worthy, Steelers defense, McLaughlin, the Bucks kicker, and
Yep.
Burnip, the punter for New Orleans, and then Ravens head coach.
Yeah. I'm still this is my first time playing with a punter or a head coach in fantasy, so I'll try to not have an opinion until we're a couple weeks in and see how that goes. Because I read the rules and I'm still familiarizing myself. But at first I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? But I'll give it a chance. I'll give it a chance.
I wanted to. I loved the head coach thing. I just was dead set on that, but I wanted to play. I thought punter would be more funny than anything else. I was originally going to take it off after scaring you guys, and then I was like, actually, I want to see what happens here.
Screw it, we ball mentality.
Absolutely. Uh, Folks, we are waiting for John Rooke, Rhode Island Radio Hall of Famer, again, former voice of the Patriots, ran a Patriots radio show. He is currently a faculty emeritus at Dean College and operates their broadcasting school. We're just waiting for him. He told me he had a class just before the show. So we're going to have him any minute, and that's going to be a thrilling conversation. We've had a great run of guests lately, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you've been cooking, lining up these guests up and down. Kasim was great. We got a lot of clippable moments from him last week. Overall, great conversation. I don't think we had any doubt in our minds that that was going to be a great show. Cuzzy was awesome. We got a lot of views coming in from Connor Harris. He's got a lot more influence than I think we realized. So many people commenting on our collab post on Fiore Calls Game collabing with his Instagram. A lot of like his friends and his followers wanted to know where they could watch. He was energetic. It was really fun learning about Banana Ball. Yeah, we're on a great run right now, and I'm surprised we're still able to keep it going.
Absolutely. I'm going to email John the link because I sent it to him over LinkedIn. Going to try
Gotcha.
to make sure he got it. But yeah, I mean, Connor is just tremendous at what he does.
100%. Banana Ball
He
is it's not easy.
He has to excel at social media, and he does. You look at the content creation there, does a fantastic job.
Yeah. I
Unbelievable. And
mean,
we've been
it's
benefiting.
part of, yeah, it's part of who he is. Like, Banana Ball really started taking off because of how much user generated content they were churning out, and how much social media interaction that they started to get. I found out about them through TikTok like a few years ago. Um, so I would say, even if it's not in his general job description, you got to be media savvy, just about for any sports media position, whatever. And a unique thing like his is he still gets to be an athlete on top of a content creator and entertainer all in one. It's really fascinating, and I think them adding more teams and creating like a league is going to be even even better for that whole new sport. It's going to bring a bunch of new people in, because I my one thing with Banana Ball is that I do wish it was a tiny bit more competitive. That's my only thing. As like a old head traditionalist baseball fan, I'd say that I would like it if it was a little more baseball centric, but I do think all the rules that they've added are cool. Um, and they keep finding ways to make the games more competitive too. They're changing the game all the time.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the new teams are going to be a great benefit. I think the innings rule is really interesting. How you win innings, and that's
Yeah,
how you win games. I think that's fascinating for the team support, for fans to get engaged, and I would hate it if MLB did it, but I think it's a cool
yeah.
concept for Banana Ball.
No, you could never implement something like that into a into a professional level sport. But that's the whole, the reason that Banana Ball was created, was to be different, to be fun, and to be, at times a little more engaging, which I think baseball in general could use. So it's good to have a mix of baseball and entertainment, and a great outlet for. I mean, it grows general baseball too, because people are like, oh, if you play baseball but you don't make it to the bigs, like, you could do this, like,
Yeah,
and
for
if
sure.
you're not patient enough to watch the bigs, you can watch this. Like, it gives people a great alternative. It's fun. Um, yeah, I mean, honestly, genius idea, and it's amazing how much it's grown, and the places that they're going to and playing and everything.
Definitely. And I hate to cut you off, but we do have John Rooke joining us now. The Rhode Island Radio Hall of Famer is with us now. John, good afternoon.
Hey, good to be with you. Thanks.
Glad to have you on. Sorry again about the mix up with getting you the link, but
No worries.
you just had class. So we'll start with that. Your latest passion has been teaching the next generation of broadcasters. What led you to go down that route after years of just being on air and focusing on your own career path?
I just sort of by chance kind of stumbled into it. I had someone who I knew in the teaching profession a couple of decades ago asked me if I would ever be interested in teaching someday. And I said, sure, I'd love to. Of course, at the time, I probably had about 17 different jobs, and I was looking to kind of add to um, uh, that slate of things I was trying to do just to make a buck or two. But I always thought about teaching, because I've always had a passion for doing things the right way, and I would want the next generation of, writers, broadcasters, communicators, if you will, to understand where those who came before them came from. And so I got that opportunity when I got a phone call from department chair at Emerson College up in Boston, and then spent 10 years at Emerson as an adjunct professor, and then moved to Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts, because they gave me a chance to go full time, B, to launch a program, and C, create something from nothing, which I think is usually appealing to a lot of people who are work oriented, and we've been able to create a really cool little department here. We actually are the smallest school in the country to have a bachelor's degree in sports broadcasting. So we're thrilled with that because we have a campus radio station, we have a campus digital media arts center, so we could do TV, radio, streaming. I also am the campus advisor for the Dean Daily, which is the school newspaper, and so we're trying to be contributors in all forms and fashion of multimedia in this day and age, and having tried to survive this um, routine, if you will, for the number of years that I have, I think I'm fairly well qualified to know what it takes to succeed, and that's what we're trying to teach here at Dean.
That's fascinating to Brandon and I, and many of our viewers. We're both recent sports media grads from the University of Rhode Island,
Right.
having gained a lot of internship experience and things like that, and taking courses at URI for it. So that jumped out to me right off the bat. And I knew who you were just from hearing WPRO and following the sports scene. And I interned with WPRI, and we actually ate at the same table at one of the PC games in the media room, and I knew who you were, but I just wanted to sit back and watch you break down the pregame. I was like, I'm just gonna sit and listen to a living legend here. But yeah, you have been in this industry for decades. You jumped in with PC radio. What has that job meant to you? Coming from Texas, kind of getting a feel for this newer league, the Big East, a team that means a lot in the Rhode Island area. How did you adapt to the New England sports scene after Texas?
First thing I had to learn, Andrew, was that PC and URI fans don't like each other. That there's a big rivalry here. But see, I can relate to rivalry because where I grew up, and I went to the University of Texas in Austin. So where I grew up, I was born and raised to hate Aggies and hate Sooners. So anybody that went to Texas A&M or Oklahoma was, you know, down. I wasn't going to pay attention to them. So I understood rivalry, and I think that's been the fun part of doing what I've done. Had the opportunity come along at URI, I would have gone to URI. And of course, when I came though to the Northeast, the legendary Jim Norman was still calling the games for Rhodey, and of course, and I've spent several years as a neighbor literally one block over from Steve McDonald. So
Wow.
we know each other extraordinarily well. And as you know, Steve Mack is a PC grad anyway. So we've always enjoyed that sort of a back and forth, I guess. But I learned very quickly that passion here is the same as it is anywhere else. Whether you're a Friar fan or a Rhody Ram fan, or you're a Patriots fan or a Yankees fan or a Red Sox, it doesn't matter the sport. That passion runs deep, and that's one part of the reason that I came up here. When I came up here back in the late '80s, was to plug into that passion. I mean, we have that, but there's an old adage in football. It's not quite the same or there's an old adage in Texas anyway. It's not quite the same these days. But back from my time, there were two sports in Texas: football and spring football. That was it. And I grew up in that environment. And so it was like, baseball season and basketball season in particular was just a way to pass time until the next football season started, or pass time until spring practice started, right? And it's not that way now. But the Mavericks have won a world title since that time, since I moved up here. The Dallas Stars have come into being since that time, and they've competed for championships. So, I'd like to say that Dallas is a little bit more in the Dallas Fort Worth area where I grew up. I'd like to say that's a little bit more metropolitan now than it used to be when I left there in the '80s. But my thought is I wanted to go to an area of the country that hung on everything. I mean, literally on everything, that it meant something, that the passion was visible, if not audible. And I knew that, Boston, Providence, New York, Hartford corridor was hugely important. And so I started in Providence and really sort of stayed plugged in to Providence for a long time, certainly through my association with the Friars, but, also the work in both the Channels 12 and Channel 10 for a number of years. And then I worked up in Boston at Channel 56 for about 11 years. I worked at WEEI for parts of 30 years. So a lot of different things that I've come into, but I decided to stay here because frankly, this was great. It was the best place in the world for me to be because I could go to this place and work there. I could go to this place and work there. And everywhere, the fandom was the same. Everybody was locked in. Everybody was passionate. Everybody was just full of vitality, for lack of a better phrase. And so I knew that I had chosen wisely. I would have looked at a job, say, in Philadelphia or a job in Chicago probably as well, if that opportunity had come along. But no regrets coming up here to New England at all. Zero. I think that's part of the reason why I have stayed here for 37 plus years.
So hopping into this region in the 80s, the teams were seeing some mild success, but not many championships outside the Celtics. And then you got to witness the boom where Boston became the city of champions while you were working. Did you see that passion flare up, or was it just an emphasis of what was already there?
Oh, no, I think it was just more of an emphasis that already. I knew it was already there. I knew it was there. I mean, even I grew up a Dallas Cowboy fan just because of where I was, but I've known the Patriots and of the Patriots for a long time, and I remember Jim Plunkett and Randy Vitaja, and I remember all these guys that played for the team. So because I was a football fan, remember first and foremost, football was the sport that I really followed more closely. Even though I played basketball in school, I was too small and too short and too light to play football for very long, in my prep career. But that's I knew of the Bruins. I was a Bobby Orr fan as a kid growing up. I was a Red Sox fan because I really loved the '75 Red Sox. That was a team that I kind of grew up with. I tell everybody though that I really became. I mean, because of where I grew up, I was a teenager when the Texas Rangers moved from Washington to Arlington. And before that, I kind of followed loosely the St. Louis Cardinals because of their proximity to Dallas-Fort Worth, and the Houston, what were then the Colt 45s before they were the Astros. But I was always sort of a Red Sox fan because I loved Louis Tiant. And Louis Tiant, the late Louis Tiant, I loved his delivery, and he had the whole Fernando Valenzuela leg kick, eyes up in the air type of delivery. I loved that, and so I kind of rooted for the Red Sox in that '75 series against the Cincinnati Reds, and I'd always followed them. But I really became a fan, a passionate fan over the Sox, the very moment that the ball rolled through Bill Buckner's legs. And I say that because one of my good friends, who was a news anchor at the TV station I was working at in San Antonio at the time, is a native of Cumberland, Rhode Island. And so he was a huge Red Sox fan, and we watched the series together. And I saw the hurt and the disbelief in his eyes when that ball rolled through Buckner's legs. And I said, I want a piece of that. I want to jump in on that. I want to be a part of a fandom that eats, breathes, sleeps with that. I like things like that to permeate my senses, and so I really have been a diehard Sox fan since '86, even though I followed them pretty much since '75.
Has your job changed in terms of how hard you are on the teams when the expectations jumped in the 2000s?
Sure. I think it does, especially when you have duties for those teams, for said teams. I mean, let's face it, when you're employed by an entity, a media entity, as opposed to the team itself, it's different. You can come in and you're supposed to be somewhat impartial, but this is why teams hire their own media now a lot of times, because they want favorable coverage. And I don't necessarily blame them. It's a PR game after all, right? It's all about spin. And what kind of positive spin can we put on, my mom used to say, it's very difficult to put lipstick on a pig's lips, and yeah, a pig is still going to be a pig, right? So, but at the same time, I also understand if they're paying the freight, why you wouldn't want to try to be as positive as you can in the coverage, because it is all about selling tickets, attracting fans, creating dialogue, whatever it may be. So, in this day and age, we have a much more difficult task in the media of accomplishing true unbiased attitude and opinion, covering the news. See, my job, today, I mean, even though, I'm technically paid by the marketing company that owns the rights to Providence College, but I mean, I'd be stupid if I didn't think, why wouldn't I want Providence to win? It's better for business. Just like, you or I, like Steve Mack, he wants Rhodey to win all the time because it's better for business. But, is he going to call, it correctly and accurately? Well, of course he is, because he's a journalist first and foremost. He's a reporter, just like I am. And so we're very grateful that, I know I am very grateful that I have bosses, that I have, entities that allow me to still be a journalist, which is what I trained to be for a number of years. And I've been doing it for about 50 years now. That allow me to still be me without being a total, homer, allow being a total honk for the home team, that kind of thing. So you do have to kind of watch what you say. I personally believe that anything is fair game as long as you're not taking a shot. I think criticism is fine. I take criticism of my performance all the time, whether I write it or whether I broadcast it. Hell, I got news for you guys. I am my own worst critic. This is how I stay, active in the business. If I'm not my own worst critic, guess what? It's time to go. Time to let somebody else do it. We all need to be our own worst critics. We're only going to be as good as our next broadcast. Forget the last one. It's over. I can't improve it. It's done. It's in the books. But I can do a better job on the next broadcast or the next article or the next column or the next radio show or whatever it is that I'm doing. That's how good I am. And that's how all journalists should be. If they cop that kind of an attitude without trying to, force feed their opinions on people, which is what it seems like media does nowadays, then we'd be living in a better world. And that's why, social media and a lot of this, gray area has gone bonkers in this country, in my own humble opinion.
I'd have to agree with that. And what you're saying is reminding me of what Brady always used to say, his favorite ring is the next one. And
Yes.
Speaking of Brady, you got to be the voice of Gillette during that golden era. And it wasn't exactly a journalism position where you weren't covering them, but to be able to outright speak the plays and the names to the fans for such a golden era, how did that feel for you?
Well, I still am. This is year 34. So
You're still doing it. Wow.
Oh yeah, the 34th season. So I've been with the Patriots more than half of the franchise's existence.
Wow.
And certainly Tom Brady was a huge part of that, and his existence was a huge part of that. But I would also add that it wasn't all Brady that built what's been there. I mean, Bill Belichick has a huge part of that. Robert Kraft has a huge part of that. Bill Parcells has a huge part of that. I would, even back when the Patriots almost moved and became the St. Louis Stallions, almost a little over 30 years ago. The people who were involved at the time. And that's, by the way, my existence with the Patriots and my job with the Patriots predates Kraft's ownership. I started in 92. The Krafts didn't buy the team until 94. So I do have a little bit of practical experience where, knowing where we've come from and have seen the growth in that regard. And it's obviously a different planet than what existed, over 30 years ago. But Brady has had a remarkable effect on not just the franchise and the team fortunes, but the region. He's given New England a chance to feel good about itself, when it was really a struggle. You mentioned it earlier about, the Celtics championships and very little else. And yeah, that was the case for a long, long time, right? Red Sox were still in the middle of their 86-year death throw. And so it was really difficult. And the Bruins gave us a little blip, in the early 70s with the Stanley Cup, but we didn't really have much else beyond that. And yeah, Tom Brady and the Patriots at that time helped give us something to be proud of and to make us all feel a little bit better about, who we are and where we live in our region of the country. And hey, we can do it too, just like anybody else, and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we owe, I think, a lot to him. I think that's part of the reason why there's a big statue out in the Gillette Stadium Plaza. That's dedicated to him right now, because he's meant so much to everyone here in New England, really, in that regard.
So, as someone who got to literally watch half the history of the franchise, Was there a moment in those slower years in the 90s where you kind of got a sense that things were shifting, maybe the 96 AFC run?
Yeah, I'd say that that's accurate. Things shifted for me when Bill Parcells took the head coaching job, which is why it's appropriate that finally all of the apologies have been made and the fences have been mended, and he's getting into the Patriots Hall of Fame this year, along with Julian Edelman. And that's going to come up in 2 or 3 weeks here. But it's appropriate because the attitude about the Patriots changed when they hired Bill Parcells. It's like, oh my God, we've got a serious football guy here. And he'd already won 2 championships with the Giants when he was the head coach of the Giants. And the thought process just changed. Now, did they go to the Super Bowl? Well, they went 1-1, the one there in 96. Did they win it? No, they didn't. They lost to Green Bay. Right. But at the same time, the expectations were there. And so that raised the bar for everyone. And so when he sort of jilted everybody by going off to the Jets at the time, and he had that clash of wills with Mr. Kraft at the time, I think everybody realized how serious this really was. But hey, if that had been 4 or 5 years earlier, none of this would have happened. Everyone would have said, okay, have a great life. We'll see you later. We'll get the next schlub to come in here and coach this team. That never happened because the expectation was set that we're serious about being an NFL franchise. So really, the attitude changed when they hired Bill Parcells.
It's obviously a good point. First of all, John, pleasure to meet you. Appreciate you coming on for a little bit with us.
You too.
Obviously, you mentioned Parcells being a turning point, but I was wondering, do you think there's any other moment or any other string of events in the late 90s that you could see, maybe personally or the whole region could see that the franchise was starting to turn it around and that good things were coming?
It started with that Super Bowl in 96, but I would tell you that when Bill Belichick came in after 3 somewhat middling seasons with Pete Carroll, that you could tell that there was more expected of the team. And so even though Belichick's first year was a 5-11 season, expectations were still rising fast. That this would actually be a franchise to be reckoned with. That they're expected to be a playoff contender, a division title contender, all of that stuff. So I would say right there in that probably 2000 era. Obviously, they won after the 2000 regular season, which stunned the world when they beat the Rams, the greatest show on turf at the time. I remember where I was that day. I was actually not at that particular Super Bowl. I was working for Channel 56 in Boston during the game, so I was doing everything back in the studio and sort of anchoring the TV station's coverage at the game. And I remember watching the game, and when Adam Vinatieri's kick went through the uprights, I just sat there for a minute, and I didn't say or do anything. And of course, the newsroom had just exploded, right? And and my boss, our news director at the time, he came over and he patted me on the back and he says, "You're a part of all this. You're a part of all this." And I had nothing. I had nothing. I was totally and completely flummoxed for one of the few times in my entire life that, oh my God, the Patriots are world champs. How the hell did that happen? And that was obviously a signature moment. It changed. If it hadn't already changed through Bill Parcells' arrival and then through Bill Belichick's arrival, it damn sure changed after actually winning that first trophy.
Wow. Now, you had a number of roles with the Pats. PA announcer, wrote for the website, covered them on the radio. What was your favorite hat to wear when talking about the New England Patriots?
It's the one I still wear. Absolutely. Every Sunday. My day starts early because I got to avoid traffic mostly. But I like being there in the press box with probably the best seat in the NFL. I'm on the 40-yard line right behind the visitors bench. And it's awesome. It's a great environment to be in. It's really easy to get charged up, with the energy that's in the stadium. And that's part of the job that I have, is to make sure that the fans in the stadium that are paying the freight are, suitably entertained as well as informed. So my job is to be the football guy, and that's what I do. I do the football. So, they want to get up and go to the bathroom, go to the concession stand, go to one of the clubs, talk to their friends, whatever. My job is to keep them, in track of the game, so that way they don't miss anything.
Must be an incredible job. And I want to switch gears to one of your other positions, columnist for the Providence Journal. And one thing that's always caught my eye with your column, Thinking Out Loud, is the rhymes you like to play with in your titles. For example, you posted one on Twitter: a talent drain, socked with a brain, it won't be in vain. How do you come up with these things? Where does that come from?
You're not the first person to ask me that. I think I'm a poet laureate at heart.
I could see it.
I mean, I really, my mom, God rest her soul, she died 17 years ago. She wrote children's poetry. And I never did write poetry. I really didn't ever think I was very good at it. But I just tried to think of a unique way to, honor her, because she's the one that gave me my love for writing. And that's how I started out as a journalism major. And so I'm really grateful to, Bill Corey, Rhody grad, and the Providence Journal for giving me an opportunity to sort of wind up my career doing my first love, which is writing. I went to school on a journalism scholarship. I wrote for the Daily Texan, which is one of the best college dailies in the country at UT Austin. And I thought I was going to be a sports writer. All I wanted to cover for a time there was Southwest Conference football. That's all I gave a crap about. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't care what beat I had. I didn't care if I was covering the Rice Owls. I wanted to cover Southwest Conference football. And then that's when women came into my life. And full disclosure here, and I became the first radio voice of the Texas women's basketball team, Lady Longhorns, they were known as at the time, and that started me on my journey down broadcast. So see, it was it was chicks that led me astray. What can I tell you? I've never regretted a minute of it, and I think that I also thought of my mom during that time. I said, yeah, what can I do to honor my mom and my love for this? And I said, I'm going to try to write a little something that's catchy, that can be clickbaitish, but not so much clickbait, but intrigue people about what I've written about the article. That's how I came up with the rhyming idea.
Love that. Well, staying on the broadcast train while you brought it up, I'm going to repurpose, I'll say, a question from earlier. But about the Providence Friars, was there a moment for you where you saw the PC culture reignite? Obviously, they went to the Final Four in the 80s, but then there was a bit of a drier spell before the Ed Cooley era. What was the moment for you that kind of changed the school's fortunes into what it became for the last decade?
I think we've seen sparks ignite several times throughout the course of my 37 years. This will be year 37 for me with the Friars. But I think the one moment that really stands out would be when Ed Cooley mentioned at his introductory press conference that we're going to win championships. And then within 3 years, he did. That first Big East tournament title that they won when Bryce Cotton was killing everybody, that to me really flipped the narrative. And then obviously there have been other great years and other great moments, and certainly the Elite Eight run, or the Elite Eight run back in '97, the Sweet 16 run just a few years ago. There's some other great moments, but to me the one that just kind of flipped the switch on to, hey, you guys can do this, would be, the Cooley year, because that was the first year also, as you recall, of the quote unquote new Big East. Right. There's all kinds of questions as to whether or not that league could really make a go of it and even come close to representing what the old Big East was. And you can't argue the fact that the old Big East was maybe one of the best basketball best conferences, period, that may have ever been invented in college sports. But when it split and went in separate ways between football and basketball, starting us on an odyssey that we're still on today, there's a lot of questions about it, whether or not it could even be anywhere close to what it was back in its heyday. And I think Ed's season that year showed that whatever it was going to be, Providence was going to be a part of it.
When you're calling games and you have a player like, say, Chris Dunn, who's just somebody that has such an impact on the school, do you see that early on in, say, his first year, right? Do you look at him play or somebody else of that caliber and just think to yourself, this kid's going to go places? It could be for visitors too. If you're watching a future NBA talent play, can you tell?
Yeah, I think you can kind of tell some of the athletes out there that are what we might call transcendental. They just look like they're heads and shoulders above everybody else out on the floor. We've had a few of those. Chris was one of those. I thought Ben Bentel was one of those. Obviously Bryce Cotton was one of those, and he's one of the greatest players in Australian Basketball League history now. There are others. Austin Crozier was one. God Shamgod was one. And now he's a full-fledged assistant coach in Orlando. There's Eric Murdoch was one. He was that kind of guy that could put a team on his shoulders and carry them, however far he could carry them, but he could carry them for a period of time. So I've been blessed to, call games for athletes like that. And I would say any broadcaster would be blessed to, have athletes like that to call, to make, your job that much easier and that much more fun. Let's face it. Yeah, we're here to make a living, but we're also here to have fun. That's why we do it. I mean, after all, most of us are failed athletes anyway, right? So, or we wish we could do what they could, and we're getting a chance to live almost vicariously through what they can actually do athletically, which is a pretty cool thing. And I guarantee you could find any number of people who wish that they could do the same thing, would gladly trade places with you because they would want to have that opportunity to, call games or write about games or talk to players, talk to coaches. I mean, somebody asked me, one time, did I ever meet Tom Brady? Well, obviously the answer to that is yes, but it was never a, hey, Tom, I'm John, nice to meet you. It was never formal. Tom knew me because he recognized my voice, and we used to run into each other in the hallways and the corridors at Gillette. But he would always, and this is the kind of person he was. He would, do the same thing for, anybody, as long as they were part of the organization. He would always, I would see him out of the corner of my eye, and I just keep going where I was going, and I would say hi or wave or whatever. But nope, he would always angle over toward me, head toward me, give me a fist bump. Voice. Thanks, Tom. That's what he used to call me. I've had two people call me that in my whole life. Tom Brady was one, and Bob Walsh, who's now an assistant for Rick Pitino at St. John's. When he was an assistant at PC, he used to call me voice. So, but that's what he would do. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. I would always look around, to see if did anybody just see that happen? Ooh, Tom Brady just bumped fists with me, but it never was. It was, it was always by myself. So, but that was always, something cool to, kind of, go through and do. I knew I was in a special place. And so I'd never taken advantage of that. And I'm just one of the gang, and I'm there to try to, make the show really good for the 70,000 people that are there every Sunday. That's my job. That's what I've done for 36 years and getting ready to do it for 37.
Wow.
Now, John, this is a question that I've asked some of the guests in the past, and you just reminded me of it. When you talk about fist bumping guys like Tom Brady and being starstruck almost, have you ever had a moment in your career where you just kind of felt like, dang, like I made it, like I'm here, I'm in the pinnacle of the sports world? Is there one key moment or a couple moments, maybe you were covering a game or just a moment of awakening really for your career?
Probably the first time I ever went into Madison Square Garden. I got chills. I mean, literally, you hear the old adage that, sometimes the hair stands up in the back of your neck, blah, blah, blah. It did for me. I'm just like, holy crap. This is unbelievable. I mean, and it's because, obviously being a lot older than you guys, but I've known of all the historical events that have taken place in that building, the Ali versus Frazier fights, the Billy Joel concerts, Marilyn Monroe singing happy birthday to President John F. Kennedy. I mean, I've been alive for all this stuff. So knowing that kind of thing happened in that building and I was right there in the same spot, I get chills thinking about it, guys.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I think this is good. And I would tell you the other time that I thought that was probably my first day on the air at ESPN. I spent 11 years at ESPN on radio, and first time I did my own show, or I did a show for them, and I did various shifts and whatnot. But I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So I'd say those were two opportunities that really presented themselves to me. That I learned that it was a long road, but I can't rest on what I've done. I have to continue to improve. Otherwise, I won't be able to keep the jobs that I have. And that's what I work on every day.
When you're switching between so many positions, I asked you this with the Patriots, but on a broader level, do you access different parts of your brain? Is there a job that you prefer more, or a way of operating that you like more between writing, radio, PA announcing?
I will tell you that right now, I mean, I love all of those jobs. I can't pick a favorite. It's like trying to pick a favorite child,
Yeah.
But I would tell you that I really enjoy teaching way more than I ever thought possible. Guys, I was one of those dudes when I graduated from college. I never wanted to see the inside of a classroom again, ever.
That's where we're at right now.
Okay. So now you understand. We get each other. We're on the same wavelength here, right?
Yeah.
I never wanted to open up another textbook ever. But it's amazing. The older that I've gotten and the more that I've done it, the more I realize that, wow, these kids are actually going to listen to me. So I really have enjoyed reconnecting with your generation and younger. I have a sports broadcasting camp, if you will. We call it a pre-college program here at Dean every summer, where I have 30 to 35, 14 to 18-year-olds who are all, want to be, they all want to be Joe Buck, and they all want to be Mike Breen, right? And I, knock some sense into their heads, but I also whet their appetite for what it is they hope to do. And I've been lucky enough that several of those kids have come on here to Dean. I've had several kids go to places like Syracuse and Arizona State and Penn State and gone to some big time schools out of that program. I have one young lady who was in the Cape Cod League as a dugout reporter this last summer, that went to Wisconsin, and they've got a good program there. North Carolina State. I have another one as well who was in the program 2 years ago at Ohio State, and she sent me an email to give me crap because they beat Texas this last week. So, I mean, but the fact that they want to stay in touch and the fact that they're going on to big places and they're starting to do for themselves, that's more gratifying than any game I've done and any kind of accolade I could win. To see them have success, man, that's awesome.
Selfish question here for Brandon and I to pick your brain, but what's one piece of advice that you give to anyone who's aspiring to get into this field?
Network your butt off. That's number one. Sometimes it's not what you know, and sometimes it's not even who you know, but it's who knows you. Key for anybody getting into this business. They got to know who you are. And the only way that happens is by eye to eye, hand to hand, shake to shake contact. None of this online stuff, none of this, email stuff, personal appearances. Those are memorable. I'll give you a little hint, and for your audience as well. You know what really works when you go for a job interview or an internship interview today? You know what really works in the aftermath? You think about maybe sending them a little note or something saying, hey, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate, the time you spent, what I learned about your station, your team, your league, your organization, blah, 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 right? Don't send the email. Write a flippin' letter and stick a U.S. postage stamp on it. Nobody does that anymore. You want to be memorable? Do that.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely something to keep in our back pockets, Con. And by the way, Brandon, we just got a comment. Apparently, Brandon, your dad went to Dean College.
Yeah, it was many years ago. He went
that's
to
awesome.
Dean. Yeah, he went to Dean. Well, clearly way before the sports broadcasting program started. But
Well,
yeah,
he was probably here then when it was a junior college, right?
I believe so. Yeah, because
Yeah.
he would have. I'm trying to do the math. He would have been there in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Late 60s, early 70s
Dean turned into a 4-year school officially in the 1990s, early 90s, when it dropped the junior and became Dean College. And then we've been mostly, baccalaureate studies here since 2000. So it's been 25 years, really.
Yeah, so it's awesome that you're back at a place that my dad started his career so long ago. Yeah, he was there for 2 years, finished up at Northeastern. I'm sure he didn't know about all the great things that you're doing.
Well, tell your dad, go Bulldogs for me, will you?
Yeah, I'm sure he's watching. So, so with that that program, when you were first talking to Dean about working as a professor full time, was this something that like was a no-brainer for you? Like you had to get this program in motion, like if you were going to teach there?
Yeah, I really wanted to. I thought it would be a neat thing to accomplish. I wanted to do it. I wanted to build something. And what they told me they were doing with the Patriots, the Patriots and Dean College came up with the first full-fledged academic partnership between a college and an NFL franchise. There was one other school in the country that had an academic partnership at the time. The Denver Broncos had one with the University of Denver in athletic training. But we were the first school to have a full-fledged, encompassing all studies partnership with the Patriots. And now there are about 10, at last count, I think 12 other NFL teams that have academic partnerships now with local colleges. And so we're happy to have been on the very start of that process. But when they told me what they were doing, it made sense to them because of my background in journalism and my background in reporting and the fact that I was already teaching communications and journalism and sports really at Emerson. And they said, well, we're thinking about starting a program here at Dean. And so, we'd like for you to come in and run. I'm technically the director of the Center for Business, Entertainment, and Sport Management here at Dean College. And so that encompasses a lot, communications and business with sport management department as well. So while I work on the relationship between the Patriots and the college, but also create other professional entities that our students can go to as either employees or internships, or we have their folks come in and lecture, whatever it may be, that's part of what my job is here. And then they were kind of like, well, why don't we just do a sports broadcasting major here because you're here. It was the late Dr. Michael Fishbein, who was our VP for academics here. He's the one that opened up my office door here and basically said, why aren't you doing this or this or this? I'm like, I don't know, Mike. Why am I not doing that? He's like, I'm going to change that. And so he ramrodded it through. We got it through, and here I am. So we've got 60, 65 aspiring young Joe Bucks here in the program that are looking to try to go on with their careers. And, you don't have to be behind the microphone to be successful in this business. We teach, production, we teach writing, we teach, all the aspects of, digital media, streaming, everything, editing, shooting, all of it, like I'm sure you guys do at Rhodey as well, because I know a lot of the people that are there and a couple of the guys that are instructors there at Rhode Island. So, it's the same thing. The only thing that we offer is a chance for smaller schools, smaller class sizes. Like I said, we're the smallest school in the country that offers, a program like, you might see at a major college. But it's because of the uniqueness of our relationship, A, with the Patriots, B, the fact that we have a campus radio station right across my hallway here and our digital media arts center. And plus you have someone here like myself and also Jerry Trupiano, who are on faculty. And of course, Troop is a former, Red Sox radio voice, and he lives here in Franklin. And we hired him for our staff as soon as I found out he was a Franklin resident. And so you've got, myself and Troop who are teaching these guys and ladies how to be play-by-play announcers, and we're having some success with it.
Wow, yeah, I've noticed too. Your camp that you run, you bring in special guests. I've seen Ian Steele and Nick Coit brought on.
Yep.
How important is it for you to get guys like that? And who else have you had visit the camp?
Bob Sosi, who's the radio voice of the Patriots, is a regular. And by the way, Ian and Nick are my former students at Emerson.
Wow.
So I've known them for a long time. I taught them at Emerson back in 09, 010, and 10, maybe 2011, I think was when Ian graduated. I'm not sure, but
Great
so
guys.
so they're former students, but Bob is a frequent guest. My son Austin, who's the voice of the Providence Bruins, he comes in and balances his act for us. Let's see, who else have we gotten in? I'm probably going to miss some here. I can't think of it. Brad Feldman of the Revolution. I've had several baseball people from the Woo Sox, from the Red Sox, from the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are friends of mine, the New York Mets, the Washington Nationals, guys that I've known in the business for a long time. So they've all been a part of this, and I think that hopefully it resonates with some of the the students who come in a little bit wide-eyed as a 16-year-old or whatever, and they're wanting to do this, but they can see that it is definitely possible. And hopefully they pay attention because, hey, everybody that I just mentioned has gone through the same thing that you guys have gone through. Okay. Yeah. And the same thing that those kids are going through. So, if you put yourself in the right place at the right time and meet the right people, as I suggested earlier, there's no reason why you can't do it.
I don't know if between Emerson and Dean, you've crossed paths with Betty Jo Cugini at some point.
Betty Jo was my boss when I worked at Channel 10.
That makes sense. Betty Jo regularly comes on 321 Media here, and she has been a friend of mine for years and a career mentor. So I had to shoot that out because I know she's had positions at Emerson and Dean. A fantastic lady. Again, you watching at home can see her on 321 Media.
She's fabulous. Yeah, she's fabulous. She's great. I know she's heavily involved in the Westerly community as well. So she was great to work for and work with. It's been a long time, probably about 30 years, but she's been in the past on our board of trustees here at Dean.
That makes sense.
So, she's sent me a note from time to time about, what we're doing at Dean. And, and I'm like, I appreciate your advice. All of that. It's great to hear from you. So it's good to have input.
How much does it mean for you personally when you see someone like Ian or Nick that you had as a student go on to do bigger things?
Oh, it's everything. Ian was Sportscaster of the Year in Rhode Island this past year. So, I mean, that's a validation of everything that we did 10, 12 years ago when he was in school, right? It's fantastic. Like I said, I have a lot of favorites. I can't pick a favorite son or daughter out of all of them, but, I just that's the greatest satisfaction that I get today. Way more than any individual game or championship or anything else that happens. And I love those. Believe me, I love those. I remember when the Friars clinched their first ever regular season title in the Big East. We were at the AMP, still called the Dunk then, and Ed Cooley was actually standing right in front of where Joe Hassett and I were located, and Noah Horkler, I'll never forget it. He was senior forward on the team that year. He came over with a Gatorade bucket, and Ed ducked. Guess who it got? Guess what it did? It froze my computer. It also set our equipment on fire, our radio equipment on fire. It started sizzling. So we were lucky that we didn't go completely off the air. I don't know how we managed to stay on the air, but I think that's a credit to our engineer, Matt Morrell, who he's an ex-Marine. So believe me, he's one of those guys that if it needs to be done, it's getting done. So
wow,
yeah. I wouldn't have moments like that to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got to ask because I was in the building for this when Ed Cooley first came back with Georgetown, and I remember that was the loudest atmosphere I've ever been in, more than any like NBA or NHL playoff game. What was that like for you as somebody who had worked around him and seen how the team changed during his time, and then with Kim English? What was that day like for you?
Difficult, but understandable. This is a business after all. So you have to put your personal feelings aside and understand that people are going to do what they feel is in their best interest, not only for themselves, but for their families. So, yeah, it wasn't easy, but then, you just, hey, it's life. So you move on and, hey, it was great working with you and hopefully we can stay friends in the future whenever we run into each other. And that's it. That's it. He still texts me from time to time, hey, how's it going? And he's trying to run a basketball program and revive a brand like, Georgetown down in Washington. But, it's good to know that he still remembers and that people still think fondly of him up here, even though I know there are a lot of people that, will forever be, soured by the way he departed. I can't say that I would have gone the same way that he did, but to each his own, man. You got to walk a mile in somebody's shoes, literally and figuratively, before you can criticize. I'm a firm believer in that. And so, would I have done the same thing? Probably not. Do I argue his right to do that thing? No, I don't argue that at all. It's his right. He can go on and do what he was, and I wish him luck, except for twice a year when the Friars play them. Then I hope we beat his butt.
Are there times where you are critical of an athlete or a coach, and then in retrospect, you take back your opinion or you consider yourself wrong upon learning new information?
I try to limit those. I mean, look, I told you earlier, I think everything's fair game as long as you're not taking a shot. Don't take a needless shot. I think that's cheap. Shots are cheap. Trying to be clever is cheap. It's a social media thing, right? Criticism is warranted, whenever, a poor play is made. And especially being around the game as long as I have, if there's a bad call, I'm going to call it. Joe's going to call it. If there's a bad call made by an official, we're going to call it. Why? I've only been around the sport as a player or as a broadcaster or as a journalist for over 50 years. So I think I know a little something about basketball. I think I know a little something about football because I've been around the sport for as long as I have. So, I'm not going to purport to be the expert. I don't know everything. Do I miss things? Everybody misses things. Why? Because we're human. Humans miss things. But I'm going to give you my best shot at it. I'm going to give you my most educated guess if I don't know it definitively, because that's what people want to hear. That's why they tune on the radio, because they want to hear what their guys have to say about their team and their game. That's why people still listen to radio broadcasts today. That's why people still listen to streams today, because they can get insight from your guys that you can't get from the network honks. Can't get it. No matter how much you love Joe Buck or Sean McDonough, and I love them both. But no matter how much you love them, they can't give you the insight that a day-by-day, day-to-day broadcaster can give his, the followers of that team and that organization. Just no way. When you hang around the team as much as we do, when you travel with the team, when you live with the team for 6 months out of the year, yeah, you're going to have a definite advantage in telling stories. And that's what our business is. We are professional storytellers. So I'm going to try to tell the best ones I can. And no, I'm not going to take shots. But if someone, makes a bad play, I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. That's a bad play.
And I want to get some of those takes from you from somebody who has watched sports for so long. I want to start off by asking about Arch Manning. Do you think the concerns from a lot of fans are warranted, or was it just an early pressure moment where the lights were a little bright for him?
You're asking the wrong person as a Texas grad, okay? No, they're jumping on him. He deserves an opportunity to. I mean, he hadn't faced an opponent like that ever. He got into 3 games last year, and they were all mom and pop shot schools. So I mean, come on, he wasn't facing Ohio State. He wasn't facing the defending national champ. Now that he's had a chance to do that, sure, I was disappointed like everybody else. I actually thought 2 things other than Arch's poor performance. Okay, number one, I thought the play calling was not conducive to his talents. So I think that belongs to Steve Sarkisian. Number 2, you got to give it to Matt Patricia. He had the defensive calls for Ohio State that completely flummoxed what Texas was trying to do. So, hey, Matty P can coach. Now, he might not be able to coach offense, but he can still coach defense. And I think he proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt last weekend.
Praising Patricia is something that hasn't happened on a New England show in a long time, but I
Right.
think it's warranted here. With the Patriots, what do you make of what you've seen from the Vrabel era so far? Have you seen a culture shift after Mayo's exit?
They're trying to do that. They're really trying to do that, through some of the personnel moves and things they're making. But we really won't know how this quote unquote culture is taking shape until we get, probably about halfway through the season. Then we might be able to get a clue. So I'm an open book right now about these guys. I hope for the best. I think the schedule's in their favor. I think they can be competitive into December, which is what you really want from this team above all. I don't know that they're a playoff team. Maybe they are. Probably not. But we won't know for sure, I think, until we get, probably to Halloween.
Staying on the topic of Vrabel, what do you make of they just finalized the 53-man roster recently, but then they released 3 or 4 players from it by now. What are your thoughts about how Vrabel's handling the roster specifically and all the moves that have gone on in just the last 2 weeks?
Well, like everybody else, I was curious about the Jabril Peppers, move. I happen to think that there's a little more to that than meets the eye.
Yeah.
I don't know that for a fact, but something is wrong there. I'll give you a little sneak preview. I'm going to write about that this week in the column. But to me, there's something very Malcolm Butlerish about that move. So I don't know what it is. I really don't. But you can't tell me that he wasn't a scheme fit or anything like that. I think that's bunk. He's probably one of the 5 best players on the roster, athlete-wise.
Yeah, definitely.
You're telling me there's not a space for it?
I think his arrest.
I think it definitely has. I'm not definitely, but it seems like it has something to do with the off-field antics from last season.
It might, even though he was totally exonerated of all of that. But
yeah.
I just, it could be. And I would tell you that we'll probably never find the answer out unless he says something. Kind of like Malcolm Butler, which is why I make the comparison.
Yeah. Also, I mean, Vrabel said in a recent presser that had nothing to do with scheme. And I'm going to assume, like most of the media is assuming, that he has a lot of trust in the new safety room. And I don't know if it was a money thing, the off-field thing, but was a very weird move because I also am in that upper echelon where I agree that Peppers was probably top 10 player on the entire roster.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I know that they like, Jalen Hawkins. I know they like Woodard, who they brought in as well. I'm just a little curious to see how that pans out, because I don't believe that the Patriots roster, as thin as it is overall in terms of depth, that's not the kind of move that a team like that can afford to make. They need to keep all the good talent that they have, and that's why I think something else had to have happened. Because I don't think smart football people make that move. I'm sorry, I just don't.
I'd have to agree there. What do you make of Kim English with PC? Because I'm surprised to see the amount of criticism that I've seen only 2 years in.
No, I'm not surprised at that at all. Expectation levels were raised exponentially, through Ed Cooley. So I'm not surprised at all. You remember that, before Ed Cooley came in, Keno Davis was the coach. That might still be a little ahead of you guys' time, but I know you were around, for it, even as younger men. And I mean, he got 3 years, and this is Kim's third. It's not my job. Thankfully, this is way above my pay grade. There's so much for athletic directors and donors and people like that to have to deal with today with the money involved here. But I mean, Kim has to know, and the school has to know that hey, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on what this team does. And I fully expect this team to take a major step back. If they don't, we'll see what the parameters are and what happens. Do I believe anybody should be fired? No, I always think people should get, second, third, and even fourth chances, depending. I also believe that contracts should be honored. But, again, it's a business decision. Whatever business it is, it's got to be predicated on business. So, listen, Kim and I get along great. He's been one of the easiest guys to work with. We have a good relationship. And me, it's always good for business when the team wins. So, and I think this year's team could be a real sleeper in the Big East. So I'm looking forward to it.
We're going to have Sebastian Thomas on at one point. Yeah, he said he's going to come on in the next few weeks. How big do you think his shot over Bryce Hopkins was in the trajectory of Providence's season last year, if you think it was big at all?
Oh yeah, it was big. It was big. I would tell you though that it was still more of a Bryce wasn't available to play as to why the fortunes went south last year than it was Sebastian's shot. But I'm not discrediting, or it's not. That's not discrediting his shot. He made a hell of a shot. Sometimes when a guy makes a shot like that, you just applaud and you move on to the next one. And Providence didn't rebound from that very well. So, but it was well done, and I was happy for the young man, especially considering how he started, and he's a Bishop Hendricken guy, and yada yada. So I think it was kind of a cool story that it happened.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Now switching gears to the Red Sox real quick as we wrap up. What do you think their ceiling is going forward as playoffs approach?
I've never been a big fan of their playoff chances. I don't think the makeup of this team is all that strong, and I've been on the record as saying that. That being said, you got to give the guys who are currently playing all the credit in the world. The team was not really put together terribly well. It's a terrible defensive team. They still lead the majors in most errors. Okay, but they've gotten extraordinary performances from a few people. The top three in the pitching rotation have been superb, and the bottom back end of the bullpen has been superb of late. Aroldis Chapman has been a freak. He has been a freak, which is why they just signed him to an extension this week, which was deserved. He deserved that. There's still some of the guys that I'm wondering why they're there where they are. Alex Cora makes a move or two every game that has me scratching my head or yelling at my TV. I'm not a big fan of Andrew Bailey and the pitching coach because he had that staff throwing nothing but puff stuff early in the year, and that's why they were getting hammered. If you've noticed, the reason that the staff is doing so much better on the front end of it is because they're throwing more fastballs and they're getting ahead in the count and they're challenging hitters. That's why they're having success. So that's the antithesis of what Bailey was preaching early in the year. Now, unless he's completely done a 180 on that, I'd be surprised if that happened. But I think that was a part of several influences, not the least of which would come probably from upstairs as well, saying, hey, we need to have a different attitude about pitching because people are sitting there knowing that the breaking ball's coming back, and they're sitting there and they're tattooing it out of the ballpark. So, these guys are not like amateur players. They can hit the breaking ball. Okay. So, especially, the sweeper, which is sort of a combination curve, slurve, slider, the sweeper pitch. Oh my God, they're just absolutely teeing off on the sweeper. And that's all they were throwing. Why? Because it probably has a little less stress on the elbow. I don't know exactly. My friend Kenny Ryan would probably know that, but I would tell you that there's been a definite change in attitude, and so they actually could get to the postseason. I don't know how much success they'll have, but if they get there, major victory, major step in the right direction for a team that did not set itself up to do that.
I 100% agree. I felt that their absolute ceiling best case scenario is ALDS with the way the team's constructed as well. But it took us a little bit over our time because of the link issue, but we're going to wrap it up just about now. John, this was a fantastic, insightful hour for us. Do you have any closing thoughts, something for our viewers and Brandon and I to take home with us?
Love traveling through Westerly. And you guys keep doing what you're doing, okay? You're on the right track. Keep doing what you're doing. And you let me know if I can ever, be of service or give you a hand or provide something for you. I'm happy to point you in the right direction.
Thank you so much. And our viewers here in Westerly love hearing that. Great having you on again. For our listeners, we will be back on Friday with our NFL preview show, and then we'll have another guest on Wednesday. We've been talking to Tammy Reese, so she's coming on the horizon at some point. But stay tuned to our social medias for more. That's going to do it for us. For John Rooke, Brandon Kahn, this has been Andrew Fiore on Fiore Calls Game.